Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kelsey. I'm the creator of Bite Size Ancient History and I studied classics and then Egyptology. So on my channel, we're here to discuss all things ancient world. And today we're going to talk more Chaos, specifically episode 3. So spoilers ahead, I'm going to give a brief synopsis if maybe you haven't watched Chaos but you still want to watch the video. I don't know, whatever floats your boat. And I'm going to preface this like I do with all of my videos, that just because I'm saying something might be inaccurate to actual Greek mythology doesn't mean I think it's a bad show. It's when they don't show that they've researched and it's a pointless change. When they change for a reason, I love it, which I think you're going to get a lot of. This might be my favourite episode thus far. So if you haven't seen the other episodes yet, I recommend you go watch them first and then come back here and watch the whole video. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on other content like this. I'm also going to put a trigger warning at the front of this episode that there is obviously the topic of murder, R-word, a lot. Just basically everything you can think of. So, sensitive themes, be warned. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Before we do our proper analysis of what's going on, whether it's factually accurate or not to Greek mythology and classics, I'm going to do a brief little plot summary of the episode so we're all on the same page. Okay, so episode 3 starts with the 3 Furies chasing somebody called Tyndareus, and eventually they make him kill himself as the only way to avoid them. We're then told that the other major character that is going to be part of Zeus's downfall is Ariadne, who is the daughter of the president Minos and his wife Pasiphae. We learn that on the Festival of Olympia it's actually also Ariadne's birthday and that of her deceased twin brother Glaucus, who she accidentally killed when she was just a baby by rolling over and suffocating him, which is really morbid. But basically her mum Pasiphae has not got over this, so every year is making these different weird creepy wax dolls of Glaucus and forcing Ariadne to model for them and then insulting her nose like unneeded. The dolls are so creepy. And the person making these dolls is somebody called Daedalus, who we'll definitely talk about at some point. We then also meet one of the bodyguards who is called Theseus, and we realise that there's a bit of a close relationship going on. It's a little bit flirty between Theseus and Ariadne. And he basically convinces her to skip the evening part of this festival where it is Orpheus's concert, as we saw in previous episodes, to come join him and go to the Munis, which looks basically like a gladiatorial fight entertainment day type of thing. While this is happening, we see that obviously President Minos is trying to work out who defiled the monument to Zeus, and he naturally goes towards the Trojans, and Hecuba and Andromache are pulled in. We're told that both of them had lost their husbands in the Trojan War against the Greeks, and also that Andromache had lost her son Astyanax as he was literally thrown from the city walls. This is when we also get introduced to the concept of the Minotaur and the fact that he is basically used as a punishment against prisoners. He is set loose on them and nobody has ever survived him. Back to Ariadne and Theseus, we realise that he's been playing her a little bit this time with the relationship because he's actually seeing Astyanax, who turns out he is secretly alive and part of this Trojan 7 that were plotting against Minos. Meanwhile, again, Zeus is going to Poseidon to basically be like, how did you let this happen with the monument? Help me out, what's happening, dude? Poseidon is talking to Minos to try and get the situation sorted, and basically somebody needs to be punished. However, Ariadne is convinced by the pleas of Theseus and Astyanax, and as part of her birthday gift, she asks that Astyanax and the other Trojan 7 be set free from the Minotaur. And Minos agrees to this. But Poseidon is not happy. This means he has gone against Poseidon. So he ultimately has to retract this and they all get killed. And Cassandra is again in the background trying to warn them about this, but to no avail. Then the final little piece of information at the end is that we realise that Hera and Poseidon are having relations and that Poseidon would really like the downfall of Zeus actually. So that is a brief little summary of the episode. Let's now get into the details. Let's start with the Furies. So I'm really excited because we had our little theory in the last episode that they might be the Furies, and that is now confirmed, and we're told all of their names. So yes, there were 3 Furies in ancient Greek mythology, and as it says in the episode, yes, these do predate the pantheon of gods with Zeus and Hera. So if you remember from our previous videos, a guy called Kronos, this is Zeus's, Poseidon, Hera's, everybody's dad. So before Kronos, there was the Titan Uranus, hence the planet Uranus, and he was also overthrown by his own son, who castrated him. And the blood that came from this action is supposedly what created the Furies. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of negative energy going on. It makes sense you would create Furies from that. Really excited to say that, of course, the names are right. We have Alecto, who is this idea of the unceasing, relentless pursuit. We have Tisiphone, who is the avenger of murder. And I think in the show they shorten this to Tizzy, which they keep doing with the names. I think it's cute, I think it works. I know it's not some people's cup of tea, but it's my channel, so I like it. Then we also have Megaera, who they call Meg, and she is symbolic of jealous rage. And yes, like they say in the show, their main purpose is basically to chase and torment people that have committed horrible, horrible crimes. And excitingly, yes, they were invisible to anyone but the person that they were trying to pursue. So completely accurate. Did they chase Ariadne, however? No. But as we get into this video, you'll see that this myth has been changed a lot, but with good and creative reason. Nor did they chase a man called Theseus, and they really should have, because in Greek mythology this was a very, very horrible man. So he R-worded his sister-in-law and then cut out her tongue to prevent her from telling anyone. The worst, most despicable thing. However, they do kind of get their own twisted revenge. So the person he R-worded and her sister actually kill his son and then feed it to him. So I guess he got what he deserved, but was not chased by the Furies. But an interesting story, I guess, to unpack. So Tyndareus did not commit suicide as a result of being chased by the Furies. Weirdly, all 3 of the people involved in this myth are punished then by the gods and turned into birds. So doesn't really seem fair. I don't know, I guess they shouldn't have murdered his son, but it's pretty bad. Interestingly, we see them go into a petrol station, which is like Tyndareus gas or something. And this is a real person, also from Greek mythology. He was a mythological king of Sparta. So I guess they're kind of showing his wealth and power by having him be like a big gas station owner. This is a little fun side one. Ariadne. So I think as we've touched on in previous videos, but I'll go into it again now for those that haven't seen it. If not, go check it out. So Ariadne, yes, is the daughter of King Minos and Queen Pasiphae. And yes, she did have a brother Glaucus. However, he meets his demise in a slightly different way, and Ariadne has nothing to do with it. So, originally in Greek mythology, Glaucus goes missing one day. And quite rightly so, Minos is completely distressed and is searching for him. So, with no other answers, he goes to the oracle to basically be like, where is my son? And it gives a twisted, wordy answer that eventually the prophet Polyidus works out. Apparently the oracle says the person that could best describe the most peculiar animal in the kingdom would know where the boy was. So they manage to solve this, and unfortunately they just find his body. He has fallen into a large jar of honey, and he has drowned. So I guess similar to suffocated like in the story, but no involvement with Ariadne. I don't judge it though, because you can see that they've done their research and they've had to change it to serve the plot. In this despair, also in the original Greek myth, Minos basically begs the prophet to use a special herb to bring back Glaucus to life. So I guess maybe that's what they're trying to do with the sculptures and Pasiphae's grief. To move on to Pasiphae, I think they're getting this idea of her madness around Glaucus from her actual madness that surrounds the Minotaur, who was also one of her children. And the myth behind this one is interesting. So the myth goes around the Minotaur that Minos wanted to prove that he was a divine ruler, and he does so by going to Poseidon and asking, can I have this most magnificent bull that I will sacrifice you in some sort of deal? However, once he finds the bull, he thinks this is the most beautiful thing ever. Not in like a weird way, which does happen a lot, admittedly, in Greek mythology, as we will now get into. But basically, he tries to trick Poseidon and give him a different bull. And as we have learned, tricking the gods does not go very well. So Poseidon's revenge is to make his wife Pasiphae fall in love with the bull, and then do certain things that you can imagine from the fact that the end result is a thing that is half bull, half man. Yeah, unsurprisingly, this does make her go a bit insane, and that's, I think, what they're showing with her grief for Glaucus. And does confirm that the Minotaur is a very real creature. In Greek mythology, they get the character Daedalus, that we meet in the show, to build this giant maze to trap the Minotaur. So they kind of show this in the TV show as like a prison where they have their prisoners, which is somewhat accurate. In the original Greek myth, Athens has to pay tribute to Crete, i.e. King Minos, and this is in the form of sending a bunch of Athenian youths once a year in a boat to be eaten by the Minotaur. So not prisoners, but I mean, kind of. And this is where it gets similar to the show again, is that one of these that are sent over is actually Theseus, who was a prince of Athens, and he, in disguise, goes over to try and kill the Minotaur and rescue these people to stop it happening every year. Who helps Theseus do this? Drumroll. Ariadne. This is why I love this episode so much, is because it's not textbook accurate, but you can see they've done the research, all of these things, and tried to pick and choose different parts to serve their plotline. So personally, as a classicist, keeps me very happy. Also keeps me very happy because I can't necessarily always predict what's going to happen still, despite knowing the mythology. I think it's a win-win. To touch slightly back on, oh, sounds a bit weird, to go slightly back to Daedalus, yes, he was a craftsman in Greek mythology, and they mention his son Icarus, very real son, and some of you will probably have heard of this myth because it's this idea that, actually, let's take it back. Daedalus builds this maze, and Minos doesn't want the information of how anybody could get into this maze to escape or get into the Minotaur, so he imprisons Daedalus and his son Icarus. As he's building things slowly over time, his materials such as wax, as we see him making wax sculptures, he builds up a collection and then also collects the feathers of birds that fly by the window of his prison tower. And this means that he can create a giant pair of wings for himself and his son Icarus. Famously, the rules of this, though, is that you cannot fly too high because then you're too close to the sun, you will heat up too much and the wax will melt. You cannot fly too low to the sea because then you'll fall in and drown. Obviously, Icarus gets carried away with the flying, he goes too close to the sun, the wax melts, he falls to his death. And they don't explicitly say the details of it in the show, but we do know his son is dead. And we have this idea of Daedalus being imprisoned. In reality, though, Daedalus did safely escape to Sicily after this, but obviously continues to mourn his son. Back to Theseus. Sorry, this episode, because a lot is happening all at the same time, weird timey-wimey stuff, is a little bit convoluted. I'm trying to... Instead of my usual timeline approach, I think it was better to focus on the characters. Comment down below if this is not an effective method. I will try again. I'm doing my best. Theseus. So he is a prince of Athens. And like I said, he tries to save his people by going over as one of the tribute to defeat the Minotaur. He does not do this alone. He gains help from the princess Ariadne, who basically provides him with a ball of thread that he can use throughout the maze to find his way back and escape. He does so successfully, and Ariadne tries to flee with him. And obviously she kind of needs to flee with him because she's just betrayed her entire family, and I don't think they're going to be too happy about that. And he takes her with him, and they flee to the island of Naxos. This is where there are different versions as to what happens. Some say that the gods intervened, so similar to in the Aeneid, Aeneas is forced to leave somebody that he falls in love with to fulfill his glorious purpose. Similar situation with Theseus, which results in him abandoning Ariadne on the island of Naxos by herself. Others say his feelings just simply changed towards her. So up to you on this interpretation. Also, side note, There is a very happy one where obviously Dionysus falls in love with Ariadne, so compels Theseus to leave so that he can be with her, which I hope, good for you, girl. Maybe it will. Who knows? That'll be very cute. Either way, she is eventually found by the god and they fall in love, have a wedding, happily ever after. So, love that. We don't quite get that in the show, but we do get this idea of him leading her on and then abandoning her. This time it is for the character Astyanax. Again, I love this change. I think it's so clever because you don't see it coming as a classicist, but it is still, you've got the root of it there. Oh, I love it. I think generally the show then with his character as well, like in the Greek myth, there's not him defiling a monument, but it is him still acting against King Minos. So lots of great similarities. The Trojan scum. I don't think we've talked about this in any of the videos yet, so I'm going to talk about them a little bit now and why the people of Crete are against the people called the Trojans. This goes back to Homer's Iliad and the idea of the Trojan War, which they reference in passing a few times. Basically, as a brief summary for how this war started, there was a wedding between two people called Peleus and Theseus, semi-divine, and all of the gods are present, but then an argument basically erupts amongst the goddesses, Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena, as to who is the most beautiful. They cannot settle this amongst themselves, so they bring in the mortal prince named Paris. To basically make him decide, they try and barter with him and offer him things. So Aphrodite offers him the most beautiful girl in the world, who is Helen of Troy. Athena offers him wisdom and victory in battle, whereas Hera offers him power and kingship. And Paris, being an idiot, chooses the love. And he ends up with Helen of Troy, who is already married to a different king, King Menelaus. I don't know why I said that so weirdly. King Menelaus. When his wife is taken to be given to somebody else, he's not very happy about it. So he mobilizes his troops to go and attack them. So the Cretans in the TV show are representing the Greek population, which is Menelaus's troops, versus Paris, which are the Trojan population. They fight for 10 years on this. And then finally, it eventually ends really when the Greeks build what is called the Trojan horse. They all sit inside this horse, pretend it's a gift, so that the Trojans open their doors, let them in, and they just besiege Troy and basically kill everybody apart from the women and children. Minos is questioning Trojan representatives to see if they're the ones behind defining the statue, because there's obviously this continued rivalry behind the Trojans that were left over and now living in Greece. Hecuba and Andromache are brought in. These are real people from Homer's Iliad. Hecuba is the wife of Priam, who is the king of Troy, and Andromache was married to Hector, one of the princes of Troy. And I love Hector. He is love of my life. I mourn him every day. And yes, Andromache and Hector did have a son called Astyanax, who from the Iliad we know was thrown from the walls of Troy to his death. However, not in the show, he is secretly alive, but this is the narrative they initially tell us. This is where I'm very sad to say that there is no crossover in the timelines, time streams between Theseus and Astyanax. While I love their relationship in the show, unfortunately it cannot be. But again, I like why they did it, I get it. But I don't know anything about something called the Trojan 7. I may be missing something. Comment down below if you have the answers and I don't. Would love to hear it. In this episode, we also meet Poseidon. He is introduced as god of the sea, very accurate. As I said in my previous video, they split up the realms of the world where Zeus was like land, Poseidon was sea, and Hades was underworld. And yes, technically he is Zeus's younger brother. If we go back to the idea that Kronos ate them all and then regurgitated them, Zeus was never eaten and regurgitated, so he became the oldest. The others then came out in reverse order of the way that they were born. Does that make sense? If you were born first, you were then actually born last because you were regurgitated. So yes. He didn't torture people by drowning them though. But I do love his vibe. I really love this interpretation of Poseidon. As I said in my summary, Theseus takes Ariadne to a place called the Munis, or to watch a Munis. I'm a little bit unclear on that one. I don't know where they've got that word from. Again, comment down below if you do know. I unfortunately don't. But it basically looks like a gladiatorial fight, which did exist. Gladiatorial fights were generally like Roman period, but people did spectate kind of wrestling, boxing, general fighting in ancient Greece. So this is great. I kind of like that they've shown it as well, and it's like properly gory, because I think a lot of the time when we study these things, we really glorify this idea of like, how cool is that? Like these people fighting animals with swords and everything. It wasn't that cool. It would have been really horrible actually to watch as a modern spectator, which it does in the show. You feel uncomfortable. Finally, and I guess to kind of end it on a bad note, we see Hera and Poseidon getting it on. No Greek mythology really shows Hera and Poseidon ever having a relationship. As we know, Hera is married to Zeus, and she is siblings with all of them, so it's not really an issue, but there's no moment where they are hooking up. I'm guessing in future episodes I'll understand better why they've made this decision, so I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to judge them on it. So I think that just about covers it. So I'm going to be covering the rest of the episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out. Comment anything else you want me to comment on. I could definitely say that better. Comment down below anything else you want me to talk about that I may have missed, because obviously there's so many little Easter eggs in these episodes. I unfortunately cannot go into the detail of all of them. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!